The headlights slashed through the Christmas snow like knives of light. Officer Ryan Carter's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his weary eyes fighting to stay open after a long holiday shift. The Colorado highway stretched endlessly ahead, deserted and silent. In the back seat, Shadow, a German shepherd, his loyal K9 partner, shifted with a low sigh, the only sound in a world smothered by winter. But then his headlights caught something, just a shiver of motion against the white. Not wind, not animal, something that moved like fear. At first, his weary brain dismissed it, a deer maybe, or a bag of trash blowing in the wind. He eased off the gas anyway, instinct prickling at the back of his neck. Shadow lifted his head and let out a low whine. As the SUV drew closer, the shape became clear, small, human. Ryan's heart slammed against his ribs. There, stumbling through the snow like a ghost, was a child. A little girl, barefoot, wearing a thin white nightgown that whipped in the icy wind. "What the?" Ryan breathed, jerking the wheel toward the shoulder. He braked hard, tires crunching against the frozen road. The girl turned her head at the sound, caught in the harsh glare of his headlights. Even from a distance, Ryan could see her trembling. Her feet were bare. Dark stains covered the thin fabric of her gown. Blood. "Stay, Shadow," Ryan commanded, as he threw the SUV into park. He grabbed the emergency blanket from the gear kit, a habit drilled into him after years on the force, and stepped out into the biting cold. The child froze in place. Ryan lifted his hand slowly, his voice gentle but steady, the same tone he used with frightened victims. "Hey there, sweetheart," he called out, letting his words carry across the snowy silence. "My name's Ryan. I'm a police officer. I'm not here to hurt you." They four smacked into way, and once of snide, in the party. The girl swayed slightly, a tiny silhouette against the vast, white dark horizon. As he moved closer, her details sharpened in the glow of his flashlight. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her dark hair was tangled and stiff with ice. Her face was streaked with tears and grime. Her feet, dear God, split and bleeding, the skin raw where the ice had bitten through. But it was her eyes that nearly broke him. Hollow, weary eyes, carrying an emptiness no child should know. Her voice was so small he almost missed it under the howl of the wind. "I'm looking for my mommy." Ryan's chest tightened. He knelt down slowly on one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. The emergency blanket crackled softly as he held it out. "What's your name, honey?" She took a shaky step forward. "Emma." "Emma." Ryan's voice stayed calm, though inside his pulse raced. "That's a beautiful name." He glanced around at the empty highway. Snow drifted across the asphalt, erasing any tracks that might have told him where she'd come from. The nearest town was miles away in either direction. "Emma, can you tell me how old you are?" Ryan asked softly, trying to keep his voice calm. Emma hugged the blanket tighter, her lips trembling. "7?" she whispered. She stepped closer. He could hear the small, ragged way she breathed, and her lips were turning blue. "Can you help me find my mommy?" she whispered. Ryan swallowed hard. "Of course, sweetheart. But first, let's get you warm, okay?" Emma didn't resist when he wrapped the blanket gently around her thin shoulders. As he guided her toward the SUV, careful not to touch her bleeding feet, he felt the violent trembling that shook her tiny body. Hypothermic. Minutes from collapse. Shadow shifted in the back seat, whining softly as Ryan opened the door. Emma hesitated, eyes wide at the sight of the big black German shepherd. Ryan crouched beside her. "It's okay. His name's Shadow. He's my partner. He won't hurt you." Emma looked at the dog, then at Ryan, and finally nodded. She climbed inside, curling into the blanket. Shadow lay down immediately beside her, his warm body pressing against hers like he understood exactly what she needed. Ryan grabbed the first aid kit and turned back to her. "Emma, I need to call some nice people who can help with your feet and help us find your mom, okay?" Her small voice stopped him cold. "She's not coming back," she said, and the words left frost in the air. Ryan froze, phone in hand. "What do you mean, honey?" Emma's eyes stayed down, picking at the edge of the blanket. "She said she'd be right back. She said to wait by the car, but the car is gone. I walked and walked, but I can't find her." Her words hit him like a physical blow. Alone, in the snow, for more than a day, maybe longer. Ryan looked at her tiny frame, huddled next to his K9 partner, and felt something break wide open inside his chest. Red and blue light soon painted the snow, carrying them away from the frozen highway into the glow of town. The hospital was buzzing with holiday chaos, nurses wearing Santa hats, garlands strung along the hallways, the faint sound of Silent Night drifting from a nearby radio. But in room 214, everything felt still. Ryan sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, his uniform still damp from melted snow. Shadow rested at his feet, head on his paws, dark eyes watching the little girl bundled up in the hospital bed. Emma looked impossibly small beneath the blankets. Her feet were bandaged, an IV drip taped to her fragile arm. She hadn't let go of the emergency blanket Ryan had given her, clutching it like a lifeline. A nurse adjusted her monitor and gave Ryan a soft smile. "She keeps asking if you're coming back. I think you're the only one she trusts right now." Ryan nodded silently, throat tight. He wasn't sure why he hadn't gone home yet. He could have turned her care over to the professionals. He could have let social services handle everything. But when she looked at him with those haunted eyes, walking away felt impossible. When the nurse left, Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Emma," he said gently, "do you feel okay talking a little bit, just so I can understand what happened?" Emma's gaze stayed fixed on Shadow, who was wagging his tail slowly, as if inviting her attention. After a long pause, she whispered, "We used to have a house, before Daddy went to heaven." Ryan's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. What happened after that?" Her voice was matter of fact, too old for 7 years. "Mommy said we couldn't stay. We lived in the car. She said she'd get help, but she never came back." Ryan tried to steady his breathing. He'd seen neglect before, kids left alone, hungry, scared. But something about hearing it in her trembling voice on Christmas Eve cut deeper than anything he'd known. "When did your mommy leave you, Emma?" he asked softly. Emma scrunched her face, thinking, "Yesterday morning, or maybe before. I was sleeping. When I woke up, she was gone. The car was gone too. I walked and walked. There also sighed Jesus, in this beacon. Die to wive disblied." Ryan closed his eyes for a second, picturing it. A little girl wandering alone through the snow, waiting for a mother who had driven away. He forced his voice steady. "Emma, listen to me. What happened to you is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make really bad choices. But you," he reached out, placing a steady hand near hers without forcing contact, "you deserve love, safety, and someone who won't leave." Emma blinked, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. Shadow stirred, then padded over to the side of her bed, resting his big head gently on her lap. Emma's tiny fingers buried themselves in his fur, like she'd been waiting her whole life for something steady to hold on to. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "He feels safe. You feel safe." Ryan swallowed hard. "That's all I want, Emma, for you to feel safe." The door opened. A woman in a blazer stepped in. Miss Reynolds, a social worker, clipboard in hand. She gave Ryan a nod of recognition. "Officer Carter, thank you for staying. We'll take it from here." Ryan stood reluctantly, but Emma's small hand shot out, gripping his sleeve with surprising strength. "You're coming back, right?" Her voice was panicked now, her breathing quickening. Ryan crouched immediately beside her bed, meeting her desperate gaze. "Right behind you, sweetheart. I promise. I'll be here as long as you need me." Only then did Emma release his sleeve, her body relaxing slightly. "Miss?" Reynolds gave Ryan a thoughtful look, but said nothing. Snow kept falling in the days that followed, but for Officer Ryan Carter, the world inside the hospital felt warmer than it had in years. He hadn't planned on staying. He had told himself after that first night that his job was done, that he'd found the girl, kept her safe, and handed her over to the professionals. But each evening after his shift, Ryan found himself driving back to the hospital, parking his cruiser out front, and walking the 2 bright hallways to Emma's room. And each time, the same thing happened. Her face lit up when she saw him. "You came back." Ryan would smile, rubbing the back of his neck. "Told you I would, didn't I?" He started bringing small gifts from the convenience store near the station. Coloring books, a pack of crayons, a puzzle with a picture of Santa and his sleigh. The things kids were supposed to have. Emma accepted each one with quiet wonder, as if she'd never owned something meant just for her. Shadow became her favorite visitor. Hospital staff usually didn't allow animals in patient rooms, but when they saw Emma's reaction, her thin arms wrapping around the big dog's neck, the first genuine laugh she'd given anyone, they made an exception. One night, as she lay tracing patterns in Shadow's fur, she whispered, "When I was walking on the road, lots of cars passed me. Their lights would shine on me, but they just kept going." "Megan." Ryan felt a sharp twist in his stomach. He forced his voice calm. "How many cars, Emma?" She shrugged. "A lot, but you stopped." Her big, questioning eyes searched his face. "Why?" Ryan paused, caught off guard by the simplicity of the question. Why had he stopped when others hadn't? He thought of that moment, snowflakes blurring his vision, exhaustion weighing down his body. He could have kept driving. He almost had. Finally, he said, "Because I'm a cop, and because every kid matters, especially if they feel alone." Emma didn't reply, but the corners of her mouth turned up just slightly, and she nestled closer to Shadow. Christmas came and went, though Ryan barely noticed. His tree at home remained boxed in the attic, lights tangled and forgotten. Instead, he spent his nights at Emma's bedside, telling her stories from his patrols, showing her pictures of Shadow as a puppy, even letting her hold his badge for a few minutes. 2 days later, Miss Reynolds from Child Services pulled Ryan aside. "We've located a relative," she explained. "An aunt in Oregon, but she's declined to take Emma in," said her sister. "Burned too many bridges. We'll have to look for a foster placement." Ryan glanced through the glass window at Emma, who was busy coloring with Shadow's head on her lap. His chest tightened. She looked smaller than ever, but also braver. Brave enough to keep breathing even when the world had left her behind. That night, Ryan sat with her as snowflakes drifted outside the window. Emma's voice was tentative when she spoke. "Do I have to go with strangers?" Ryan swallowed. "They'll try to find someone who can take care of you, sweetheart. Somewhere safe." Her eyes glistened. Can I stay with you, Officer Ryan? Just until I'm not scared anymore?" The words stopped him cold. He hadn't expected them, though maybe he should have. He'd been the only constant since the night he found her. He didn't answer right away. His throat felt too tight. Instead, he reached out, brushing a strand of tangled hair gently from her forehead. "Emma, I don't know what's going to happen yet, but I promise you this, I won't let you face it alone." She searched his face for a long time, then nodded, clutching the blanket closer. Shadow shifted, laying his head across both their laps like he was sealing the promise. Ryan leaned back, exhaling slowly. He was a cop. He'd sworn to protect people, to uphold the law, to keep order. But this was something different. The decision came slowly, and then all at once. For days, Ryan told himself it wasn't his place. He was a cop, not a parent. He worked long shifts, came home to an empty house, and barely managed to take care of himself unless you counted Shadow, who was the only soul waiting when he walked through the door. But every time Ryan tried to picture Emma being sent off with strangers, something inside him twisted. It was Christmas week. Families all over town were gathering, exchanging gifts, laughing under twinkling lights. And Emma, the little girl he'd found barefoot in the snow, was sitting alone in a hospital bed, asking if he'd come back. He couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, Ryan picked up his phone and called Miss Reynolds. His voice was steady, even though his chest felt like it might crack. "It's Officer Carter. I know it's late, but I've been thinking, what happens to Emma now? There was a pause on the other end. We're still searching for her mother, but with no contact and no willing relatives, she'll likely go into foster care. Ryan closed his eyes. He could almost hear Emma's small voice in his memory. Can I stay with you, Officer Ryan? What if someone like me wanted to foster her? The silence stretched. Finally, Miss Reynolds said carefully, "That's incredibly generous, but you need to understand what you're considering." "I know," Ryan cut in gently. "I know what I'm asking, but she needs someone who won't leave. And I've got room. I've got love to give." Another pause. "Then let's start the paperwork." The next evening, Ryan walked into Emma's room with Shadow at his side. Emma was sitting cross-legged on the bed, coloring absent-mindedly. She looked up the moment the door opened. "You came back." Ryan smiled softly. "Told you I would." He pulled the chair close, lowering his voice. "Emma, the social worker and I talked. She said you'll need a place to stay while they figure things out. It's past me and the scud." Emma's hands froze on her crayon. Her eyes darted down, bracing herself for the worst. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out his house key, sliding it onto the blanket between them. "How about my place? Just until we make it official." Emma stared at the key. Her lower lip trembled. "Really? Really? You, me, and Shadow. We've got a spare room and it's been empty too long. Bo stat pan now one." The silence stretched for only a heartbeat before Emma launched herself forward, wrapping her thin arms around his neck. Ryan caught her, holding her carefully, feeling her small frame shake with sobs. 2 days later, discharge papers were signed. The hospital staff waved goodbye as Ryan guided Emma out into the cold winter air, bundled in a donated coat and boots 2 sizes too big. Shadow padded, faithfully at their side, tail wagging. They drove in silence, Christmas lights glowing from the houses they passed. Emma clutched the stuffed bear a nurse had given her, eyes wide as the SUV turned into Ryan's driveway. When he opened the front door, warmth and the faint scent of pine greeted them. Ryan had stayed up late the night before, dragging the forgotten tree down from the attic, stringing lights until the living room glowed with soft color. He'd even wrapped a few small boxes, gloves, a picture book, a toy flashlight, and placed them under the branches. Emma stopped in the doorway, frozen. "Is this for me?" Ryan crouched down beside her, heart pounding. "Yes, for you." She turned, eyes shining, and whispered the words that sealed everything. "Thank you, Dad." Shadow barked once, tail thumping against the floor. Ryan smiled through the sting of tears. For the first time in years, his house didn't feel empty. It felt like family.